Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I asked everyone to send me questions through email, through Instagram, and through YouTube. And man, there were some really tough questions. So here I am. I've got my phone with all the questions, and you didn't see that. And I've got my wine, and we will give some honest answers to all the questions you asked. Before I jump in, keep in mind that this is not financial advice. This is just my personal opinion as a hospital worker who happens to have done some real estate investing and trying to think through these questions based on what I know and trying my best to give an unbiased view. And the second thing I want to share before starting is that this is the least scripted video I have done. So I'm a little nervous. So the first question comes from David. Hi Lydia, I think you make great videos. They inspire me. Oh, thank you. I'm just wanting to ask you many random questions. Great. Do you think it's a good time to buy a property right now given the high interest rates? That's a tough one to start with. So the day I'm recording this, the interest rates are at about 7%, which is really high compared to what we've been used to in the past 10, 15 years. I think there's no denying that it is a lot harder to find a property that could offset your expenses. And despite kind of routinely monitoring the market, I haven't found anything that's a good deal locally. That said, in a high interest rate environment, you also have fewer competitors because there are fewer people who could enter the game and just hold on to something and have it barely cash flow. The next natural question is, well, then why would you even do that if you're not making money? I think it can still make sense depending on the person, depending on their time frame and their goals. And I kind of look at it as opportunity cost. Say you have 50K, which you could go out and buy this rental property that's 250K, and it won't cash flow very much. You'll just be a little bit positive. You'll basically have enough of a buffer room to not operate at a loss. And if that property in the meantime is a fun place to visit, that you're somehow personally gaining something from it, or if you're using that as your first one to learn something new, or there are giant tax benefits that you're getting from this, you could mathematically put a number on how much you're gaining out of that $50,000 investment and your time. And I would then compare that to what else you could do with this 50K. Could you put it in just index funds, or maybe you can use it to start a business? It probably depends on the person's skill set, your risk tolerance, your time frame, to kind of decide what level of returns makes sense for you to pursue real estate still. If I were completely starting new right now, I think I would still use the time to learn it. Like I said, deals are not like just laying around everywhere, but at times like these, cash is also not laying around everywhere. When you do find that deal, it's not like there are 10 other cash buyers that are ready to compete with you. So I guess my really long-winded answer is just maybe, and be patient, and to keep learning and keep an open mind so that you are familiar with like a bunch of different options and you can identify that option and kind of strike when the opportunity presents itself. Part 2 of the question is, do you think condos are a great investment? Are they hard to sell? Do they appreciate? I actually don't personally know. Let's look it up. I would look it up on Fred, which has really good data and charts and whatnot. It looks like they do appreciate somewhat. I guess I would compare it to like single family homes, multifamily. And it also looks like this is area specific. What else did you say? Are they hard to sell? And are they great investment? The only thing that I'm really thinking about in terms of condos is kind of their rules. There's always some sort of a bylaws or HOA situation where they may currently allow short-term rentals, but it could change on a moment's notice. All it takes is for a bunch of people on the board to get together and agree, yup, we don't want these short-term rentals anymore, and it can flip. So I just find that to be too much regulatory risk for myself personally. And also from like a differentiating standpoint, if you're going the Airbnb route, I'm not sure about long-term rentals, maybe. I feel like there's not as much wiggle room you have to differentiate yourself from just another room in a hotel. I know there are all these arbitrage people, especially on YouTube, that make condos work. So they might know something that I don't. And then, do you think Florida markets are good markets to go into given high insurance? I would treat this as just one of the things on the expenses. I agree, it's high insurance, and then depending on your flood zone, there's an additional flood insurance. I didn't know this before I started, and that's why I kind of want to share this with you guys. There's a flood map through FEMA, and you can look up based on the map, based on your address of the house, whether this is in like zone A or zone V. which would require extra flood insurance because it's just so close to the coast. And every year it seems like if there's been a hurricane that's going to be causing actual damage. Just higher operating expenses. If all the other numbers work, I wouldn't rule that out. And then the last part, do you think competitive markets with high demand like Kissimmee is a good market to go into? I feel like one of the other channels, I think it was Real Estate Robinsons, that mentioned that it was on a list of markets that had declining revenue year over year. Don't quote me on that. Double check the numbers. Competitive markets, I assume like inflated supply. In general, I do like to look at the trend in market supply within the last couple of years. Has it been steadily trending up? Has it been kind of flat? Or is it like definitely on this crazy upswing? What that does, what a huge change in local area supply does, is that the analytics websites like AirDNA, Price Labs, their revenue from the past year won't apply for next year. Say like your market only had 100 listings last year and every listing made 100K. Now, if the listings coming up this year is 150 listings, and even if travel demand increases a little bit, it's not going to increase by the same amount. And so on a per listing basis, everyone's going to make a little less. So I personally don't prefer markets that are on a steep upward trajectory. Would you and your husband like to pull funds and potentially invest together in the future? I think it'd be a great idea to reduce risk and buy bigger and better assets. I agree with that last statement. I think having partners that allow you to expand at least your search criteria to the bigger houses, the 5-6 bedroom houses with a pool and more amenities, that kind of unlocks a whole separate category of what you can invest in. I will say we are already committed to a few friends and family who have asked. Absolutely not a brag, and I constantly feel like we have not brought them any deals because there really haven't been anything exciting to share with them. But thank you for thinking of me. And honestly, if you guys want to like connect with each other in the comments below and meet each other, pull funds, whatever, please go ahead. And if there's a way I can help facilitate that, I'd be more than happy to. So just let me know. All right, next question from Edwin. How do you decide what renovations and furnitures are needed to produce the highest ROI? I'm currently in the process of renovation and went over budget by a good amount. Think we were wanting to change a lot, but now that we look at it, we probably could have not done certain things. By the way, I'm also a pharmacist. Love your videos and how you explain everything. Thank you. Hi, fellow pharmacist. I do the exact same thing as you, Edwin, so I don't know that I'm that helpful. But I did learn a few lessons in hindsight, and maybe this is helpful for someone else. I think the things that generate some level of ROI is either things that are super durable, like furniture that have a really high rub count and a billion people can sit on it, and you know the fabric is not going to pill and look nasty. Things that photograph really well in pictures. So I made the mistake of just buying all these cute little knickknacks because I wanted to, but they don't really do a whole lot. If I had to be the most minimalistic and just pick out the top 5 things, like 5 moments, if you will. That's what they say in all these interior design videos. If I could just create a few moments that could be captured in a picture, that is probably the most streamlined way I could go. So instead of like a piece of art here, a little vase there, do a few things like over the mantle, for example, and have that really glorious picture that you can put on your listing and has that like little wow factor. And then as far as amenities, they just need to be like not annoying. One example that I often like to use are like the annoying towels that leave a lot of lint. That will annoy somebody. Or the cheapest, nastiest toilet paper, gas station bathroom level sort of hand soap, stuff like that. Like really bad things that also stand out. You don't want to do that. But there's nothing wrong with doing a few more generic things that don't stand out as being wrong, but they are like meant to create specific memories. Because like you said, those don't necessarily generate any sort of return on investment. And then as far as amenities that you could invest in, it probably depends a little bit in your area. I know somehow in Jacksonville Beach, everyone now has an arcade machine and a pool table. So what I had wanted to do to like stand out and add some pizzazz is now what everyone does. So everyone's house is ranking on beach and play. I suppose the next thing I could add would be like the hot tub, the pool. That is a much bigger purchase, and on my estimation, it would raise the operating expenses so much that I don't know that necessarily it would make things better. All right, next question. Carrie says, we just said yes to the dress/condo. I love that. And we are new Airbnb owners, so excited. We will have a management company helping to oversee things, but we are also encouraged to try and secure occupants on our own. My question is, how do we get started with Airbnb to do this? And what things should we be on the lookout for in the first 6 months? Thanks so much. Thanks for the question. I'm so excited for you guys. That's awesome. My first thought looking at this is that management company would obviously be a great route and allow you for more hands-off investing. But it sounds like you're also interested in learning, and if you want to give this a try, it's not hard. It just takes time, and there's a lot of little things to learn. There's a learning curve that's somewhat steep, but it's not like difficult. It's not like rocket science. And I personally manage my property in Florida. I love how much I'm learning from it. And also, like, these property management companies charge 20 to 25% depending on who you find. And so yeah, something that's worth considering. As for how to set it up on Airbnb, I do have a video planned for that coming up, so I will pin that in a comment once that's done. But very briefly, in the beginning, you have to figure out some of the business structure stuff, like do you want an LLC? And if so, what are you gonna do with the title of the house? You'll need some business banking and credit card type stuff set up for your business. You'll need insurance for the house and also kind of just an umbrella insurance for you. And then you gotta sort out the licensing, like each municipality or city or county or state has its own registration system for short-term rentals. So you got to figure out what that is and register with the appropriate authorities. I had to register like in 5 different places for Florida, which is insane. But here in Minnesota, didn't have to tell anyone at all. I actually reached out to the people and they said, you don't need anything from us. Go enjoy. And then after that, you would write the listing, you would take photographs. Obviously, you would stock this place and furnish a space. I feel like I did skip that. And then you would put the thing on Airbnb and Vrbo, ideally. You'd figure out your pricing. You would maybe make a few templates for guest messages. I don't think right from the get-go you need a PMS that syncs the two, Airbnb and Vrbo, and automate messages. Probably you should start with tinkering and figuring out what works first. And I would say before you go live, test your space and say hi to the neighbors, because you need them to be on... No, you don't need them to be on your good side. You need yourself to be on their good side, because they can keep track of if you have parties going on. They can let you know, like if they are on your team, they will tell you instead of reporting you to somebody else and revoking your license or doing something that's going to be detrimental for your business. And I think that's the gist of it. As far as what you can expect and be on the lookout for the first 6 months, bookings wise, I would expect a booking pretty soon after. Remember, in the beginning, you have this like new listing algorithm boost. So you should be showing up in search results as long as your pictures are reasonable and that your pricing is reasonable. I think for this tiny house, it was somewhere within the first week. And then for the Florida house, I think it was like 2 days. And then operationally, for the first 6 months, there's gonna be a bunch of hiccups. And I think this will be the case whether you self-manage or have a property management place, because there's gonna be little quirks of the house that you just didn't know before you started occupying it. Like maybe the water heater takes forever to heat up and guests will complain or ask about it, and you have to figure out, oh my god, is this a thing that's broken or is this just a thing that I just didn't know? Maybe the fridge makes noises. I don't know. Like there's all sorts of these little things that you will come to learn about the property itself. You will also come to learn a lot of things about just the hosting process, right? Communicating with cleaners, communicating with your landscape person, which would be less of an issue since you have a condo, but just setting clear expectations, knowing, for example, if the hand soap is low, is it your cleaner's job to notify you, or is it their job to like go buy it? Like what is your setup, and how are guest complaints going to be handled if they have to do with cleanliness? There's also a lot of learning about hospitality, about managing cash flow in a business. There's a lot of little things to learn, but like I said, None of them are crazy difficult. I don't have any particular training or background in businessy things. It's just a thing that you can pick up as you go, as long as you dedicate some time to studying it. The next question is from Instagram from Elena. Are you going to purchase another Airbnb house? Yes, I would love to. I don't have a specific house that I can refer to, and I don't have a time frame, but I am shopping. And I've actually been playing with the new AirDNA dashboard. They changed their market dashboard thing to now be all the markets, which is so tremendously helpful. In the past, I would look up which markets I'm interested in, kind of narrow in to 2 or 3 at most, and then purchase like a Price Labs market dashboard for each one, which is $10 each, and it's not like a crazy amount of money, but it is like a conscious decision to buy something. But now with this new AirDNA dashboard that I've been playing with, it's just all the markets. I get to browse kind of at a high level. What are some trends in the market? Is supply blowing up? What's the revenue been looking like for a 2-bedroom house, 3? And there's like some level of granularity for this too. Our next project will either be, well, we're still finalizing. My husband and I have kind of discordant thoughts on this. Either be something close by just because that's easy, that's something we already know, or something with some amount of nature within drivable distance to us in the Midwest, which is so vague, but there are a lot of logistical things with that. Like if you're up north in a cabin or by the lake, you're either in an already touristy area or you're so remote that it's really hard to find a cleaner, a handy person and whatnot. I totally see the market for that, and the AirDNA data suggests that this is a good idea. It's just a lot of logistics and like biting the bullet. Do we actually want to do this? And we're not really up north people. That's the thing. Like it sounds like a good idea, but try having 3 kids in an up north cabin. Like, what am I gonna do? The other thought is something, again, coastal, but on the West Coast. Invariably, the regulations are much tougher on that side of US, but that is also where we would truly want to go if we had a vacation home. So we're kind of torn and simultaneously exploring all of the above. Interest rates, as we talked about, is not helping, but that is kind of the rough plan in the next 5-6 months, and I have a very wide time horizon because I'm not in a huge rush. Narrow in on the actual market we want to study in depth, and then study that in depth for another couple months before we make a decision. So that's how I have it tentatively in my head. And most likely we would partner with someone in our family, which is more in-depth than the question you actually asked, but the answer is yes. The next question comes from Cha, and it is about doing real estate with a spouse, sharing and creating a vision together. That's a hard one, and I feel like it looks different for everyone, so I don't want to speak for everyone else, but for us, we do have a shared vision, and that's kind of where it started. We want to not work forever, and we also want to create something for our kids, right? I think that is actually, for me at least, the bigger driver, that comfort of being able to leave something with them in a more diversified way. And we also have this shared vision of being able to spend more quality time, have more flexibility with our life, kind of building additional streams of income so that we could step back from work, so that we could at least change our relationship of how much we need to rely on work in case anything were to force our hand, or if we feel like just not working as much. So yeah, there's a shared vision on time freedom, financial freedom, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of our collective goal. And within that, we each kind of have our own strengths. I think I'm the more analytical one. I tend to be able to focus really, really well. I can sit in a room quiet, staring at my thing and doing my task for like hours on end, and I would forget to eat because I am just so immersed into a thing. Whereas my husband, he is amazing at building relationships. Like, it actually feels genuine. He's meeting people. It's not like weird, slimy, scammy networking. I don't even know how he does it. He just connects with people. Like, I wish I had that skill. And he's also much more operationally sound in the sense that he does not get overwhelmed when like 10 things are breaking simultaneously in different parts of the business. He likes the troubleshooting. He feels like that's kind of like putting together a puzzle, he says. And so very fortunately, we do have some complementary skill sets, I think. I'm gonna have to double check if any of this he agrees with, but I think it makes us a solid team for investing together. And you have to remember, I only addressed the vision and the kind of the practicality of like, how will you work together? I think also in the beginning, there is a phase where yes, both of you want to go in that direction, but one person will have a little bit more analysis paralysis or a little bit of like something holds them back. Whatever it is, you guys are a team and you just gotta figure it out, whether it's a mindset thing, a knowledge gap thing. You just keep working towards it and keep having that conversation. I remember back in 2021 when all of this started for us, we would be driving back at night and on these like long drives after visiting family, and we would be listening to Bigger Pockets podcast together and having conversations, doing like a little topic discussion about that. And we did quite a few of those, and I think that really helped us get on the same page about where we want to go and how we want to get there. So if you're looking for ideas, that's a pretty solid option. Moving on to a question from Eric. Eric is a real life friend. How do you interact with overly demanding, rude, or just plain miserable Airbnb guests? I have actually been very lucky that I haven't had that many bad guests. I think it really comes down to having a really strong prevention strategy or pure luck. Like, I can't really take credit for all of it, but prevention is really key though. Like, that is the starting point. And then step 2 is kind of the ability to detect it. So whether it's a noise monitor or a Ring camera or just a nosy neighbor who is very interested in keeping you in the loop, any combination of the above can really help at least detect the problem as it's going on, and you are able to reach out to the guest and say, hey, did you know we can't do this thing after 10 p.m. because of the city rules? And they may very well say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, or I forgot. I will kick everyone out now. This has never happened, so I'm just like making up a dialogue. I think honestly, the rudest people are the ones that broke stuff. And those are not people that would tell me anything. Like, I don't hear from them. And the first thing I hear about them is from my cleaner, and that a side table is already broken, the glass top is missing. So yeah, I hope you guys also don't have to run into major issues with rude guests. Moving on to the next question. Brandon asks, what channels do I subscribe to and what type of content do I like on YouTube? Please don't judge, okay? I watch a variety of things. I've watched YouTube since like my college days, and I would watch a lot of makeup and skincare videos. Not so much vlogs, but just actual like reviews and what do people do with their makeup, because I don't know, it was fun. It's fun and informational for me. To that end, I still watch Dr. Shireen Idris. I enjoy her personality and she's fun and she just knows so much. Smart lady. I watch a lot of Ali Abdaal because he has helpful YouTube related content on like how to make videos. But also I feel like his troubleshooting frameworks and how he thinks really resonates with my own thought processes. So I like him for that. I watch a bunch of Shelby Church because she just makes good videos and they're interesting. I like to watch Ask Sebi when I feel like going down the credit card rabbit hole. I used to watch more Bigger Pockets when Brandon Turner was still there. Oh, I love Uncle Roger. Do you guys know who he is? Stephen He and Dr. Glaucon Falcon. Jen Im occasionally for lifestyle things. A little bit of Graham Stephan. And then for Airbnb stuff, you guys all watch probably the same people like Rob and Sean and Tony and Sarah, stuff like that. All right, next question is from Dorji. How to qualify for a second property, the real numbers, especially when the interest rates are high. Second property, I assume you mean like a second home, like a vacation home, not like literally a second. Well, I guess in a lot of cases that is your second. Whatever, let's do vacation home. It's getting late, guys. 10:30 is my bedtime and we are past that. Okay, so this is my spreadsheet that I've pulled up and you guys have access to that through the link below. Let's go to Minneapolis because that's close by. Should I pick an expensive house or a cheap house? Like a reasonable vacation home, yeah? How about this $850K house in Edina? Plugging in the numbers, immediately you are at least going to run over $70K for operating expenses, and this does not account for repairs and cleaning fees yet. And those tend to depend on how much turnover you have, which is why in my calculator it populates from the revenue. So likely you need a revenue of like 90K for this to even like comfortably break even. Can this property make that much? I don't know. This would be something that you would have to figure out after studying a market using a dashboard like AirDNA or Price Labs. But this is something that you can figure out, right? Like there is already data that you can narrow down. And this is kind of how I would run through the numbers, at least quickly, to see if a place even makes sense. Brent from Grey House Studio asks, if we didn't have HOA challenges, which would I prefer? Trusting my team, like the handy person, cleaners, etc., far away with my Airbnb, or having the one next door so I can guarantee the quality? This will sound bad, like I don't care about quality, which I do, but I do actually much prefer the far away one because I can't go in. I think when I was here, I was just too handholdy. I was too micromanagey, and I couldn't get myself to step back just because I can go in and find that one extra hair. Is the quality better after I remove said hair? Yes, 100%. But is it completely necessary, and does it actually have an ROI attached to it? Maybe not. And I think there's a degree of like comparing apple to oranges too, because locally I was just never able to find a good cleaner. So if I had a professional crew that operated here, maybe that would be a sweet spot. I just don't have experience with that. I do really like having the faraway Airbnb option as a vacation home for myself, because this house where I'm recording, it's not really a vacation for me. And I think that is part of the appeal of having a second home that gets highly subsidized through a short-term rental business and kind of have a free vacation here and there. All right, one final question before I head into work. As you can see, it's a brand new day because I clearly rambled too much on the previous answers. The last question comes from Prasad. And he wants to know about basically becoming a clinical pharmacist, like what are the steps to get there, what courses are needed, what the roles are, what other job opportunities. Originally wasn't going to answer this one, but looking at all the comments on my one video about my day in life as a pharmacist, there are quite a few questions about like how do you get to being a clinical pharmacist. So I'll just give a very brief overview of how it looked like for me. Keep in mind, pharmacy is a highly regulated, licensed kind of a job. So there's going to be a different process for each country, and within the US, it will be different for each state. So make sure you look that up. For me, I did 2 years of undergrad in the US, and then after that, I did my doctorate of pharmacy, and then I did my residency training, and that was in a hospital in California. After I've completed my inpatient clinical pharmacy residency training, then I applied for a job to be a clinical pharmacist. I think more commonly these days, you would need at least 2 years of residency training to land a specialist clinical role, but that probably depends on where you live, how rural versus how urban the place is. And then generally, as far as what I do in a day, I don't do any of the dispensing as the question suggests. I actually don't even touch a lot of drugs other than when someone is coding, like, and they're bringing the crash cart and I am the person manning the crash cart, you know, dealing with the drug portion of it. On a day-to-day basis, I am sitting within the unit or ward if you're in UK, and I'm reviewing my patients, I'm looking at their labs, their medications, why they're here, and kind of just piecing together their whole clinical picture to decide what should their medication regimen look like. Are the current meds that are picked the best choices? Are they the right doses? Do they interact with each other? Are there better options? Are there missing components? Are there extra components? I think without getting too technical, that's kind of the gist of what I do, and I would make those recommendations to the team. I would say my job is maybe 80% at a computer, looking up this information and using whatever evidence is available to me to piece together an answer. And then the other 20% is communicating either with doctors or nurse practitioners or PAs or nurses, whoever else on the care team that needs to hear these suggestions or is asking the question to me. And then I guess one last thing I'll say is there's a lot of questions about like, how do I become a pharmacist if I come from X, Y, and Z country? I don't know for sure because I trained here, but I would say you would at least need a doctorate, and most states within the US for their licensing requirement require a number of intern hours, and I'm definitely not an expert on how you can achieve those as a foreign graduate. So look into those things depending on which state. Look at their board of pharmacy and hopefully you'll get some answers there. All right, that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful, and if so, I think we should do it again at some point. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions, and a special huge thank you to whoever is still watching to this point. I hope you're having a really good day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye!